Welcome to our seated power Pilates class. So today is week 2. And if you are new to the class today, welcome. If you've been here last week, welcome back. Our seated power Pilates class mirrors our Tuesday power Pilates class, except that class is fully standing. And so we will be building on some of the Pilates skills that we learned last week. And what we're really trying to achieve in this class is we're trying to have a really strong trunk, our strong core muscles, strong torso in order to keep us stable as we're moving through the class. And so what you'll find is a lot of this class is actually based on postural type of exercises. So if you're someone who is looking to improve your posture, perfect, you're in the right place. So because our class is seated, you'll need a chair. So you can see behind me, I've got a little chair here. Ideally, you want to be in a chair without wheels if possible. So if you have a computer chair, that might not be sturdy enough for the class because the wheels will cause the chair to move. And we definitely want a very stable chair for doing our Pilates class. And ideally, you want the chair to not have any armrests, just so that way when we're moving our arms, you won't hit your arms on anything, and it's just easier for you to move around. But of course, if you only have a chair with armrests, that's okay. Just be a little bit careful as we're doing our class today, so you're not hitting anything or injuring yourself. So just be a little bit mindful of that. And other than that, you don't need any other equipment, just a chair that's sturdy to sit in, and we will get started. We just want to make sure there's no one stuck in the waiting room here. Now, you might see me move up to the screen to let folks in from the waiting room today. And so if that happens, just ignore me, keep doing your exercises, and I'll try to be as least disruptive as possible. Okay. Perfect, got everyone here. So I'm gonna stand up and move back to my chair. Hopefully you can see me okay. Now, before we begin, I'm gonna turn sideways and I just wanna talk about how we want to sit in our chair today. So it's very easy for us when we're doing a chair exercise class to be seated back in our chair and maybe leaning into the backrest of the chair because it's comfortable and it makes sense. But when we are doing exercises in a chair, we don't actually want to be in this comfortable position because when we're seated this far back in the chair and we're leaning back into the chair, what's going to happen is we actually don't have a lot of room to move our legs and trunk, and everything's kind of stuck really far back. And so we want to sit upright and we want to move forward in our chair. So we want to be almost at the edge, the front edge of our chair, and we're not leaning back. So we're in this nice activated, ready position to be able to move our bodies in various directions. Just letting somebody into the waiting room. So just be a little bit mindful of that today as we do our class. We want to always make sure that our posture is upright and forward in the chair. And like I mentioned earlier, when we're doing our Pilates class, a lot of the Pilates movements stem from trunk control and postural control. So if you're someone who wants to work on your posture, this is the right class for you, but it does mean we need to be forward in our chair to start. Okay, enough talking to me. Let's get started. So we're sitting upright in the chair. We're going to start by placing our hands onto our hips. And what we're going to start with today is a grounding exercise. So as we're sitting here, we're going to imagine our pelvis is very heavy. We've got lots of weights attached to our pelvis. And we're going to feel our pelvis sinking down into the chair towards the earth. And with each breath out, we're going to sink a little bit deeper into our seat. Again, breath in. And breath out, sinking into our seat. we're really concentrating on our pelvis here as we're breathing in and out. We're sinking our bottom deeper into the seat, towards the floor with each breath out. Think heavy hips, heavy pelvis. And in this position here, we're just going to start rocking our pelvis forward and back, thinking about the heavy pelvis, sinking deep into the seat. It's almost like our seat is made of sand or perhaps some wet cement. And we're really rocking the bottom of our pelvis into the seat to make an imprint. Keep going. From the side, it looks like this. I'm rolling through the bottom of my pelvis. I'm imagining my seat is made out of wet cement. And I'm rolling the bottom of my pelvis, rocking the bottom of my pelvis to make an imprint on this chair. Keep going. I'm just letting folks in from the waiting room. We're still breathing in this position. And just like before, with each breath out, we're dropping that pelvis even deeper into that seat. Rocking, rolling the bottom of the pelvis deeper into the seat. Now we're going to see if we can do the same thing, but now rocking and rolling sideways. So I'm not lifting the bottom up off the seat, but I'm rocking the bottom of my pelvis. I'm rolling the bottom of my pelvis on the seat, just like before, imagining that your chair is made out of wet cement. And you really want to roll and rock the bottom of the pelvis deep into that chair to almost create an imprint of your pelvis in that chair. You're rolling and rocking sideways, but we're not lifting our pelvis off the seat. And with each breath out, we're pressing deeper into the chair, really connecting and grounding our pelvis here. Nicely done. And now we're going to see if we can do the same movement, but we're adding on a bit. We're going to draw a circle on the seat with the bottom of our pelvis. The bottom of your pelvis, you're still rocking and rolling your imprint on the seat, but this time in a circle. And we don't want the movement to come from the shoulders, right? We don't want to be up here. We want to be low. We want to be deep into our seat. Really think about grounding your pelvis deep into the seat, almost like you're growing roots into the floor. Rolling heavy pelvis into the seat in the form of a circle. And let's try the other direction. Can you do a circle in the other direction? Same as before, you're grounding. The movement is coming from your pelvis, not the shoulders, not the head, not the neck, but pressing and rolling into the bottom of our pelvis, making an imprint into our wet cement. Nicely done. And then when you're ready, you're gonna make the movement smaller and smaller until you come to some stillness in the middle of your seat. From here, we're going to start by activating our 5 Pilates rest positions that we went over last week. Now, the name is a little bit ironic because it's called the 5 Pilates resting position, but as you'll see in a second, is actually not very restful at all. But the reason we're going over these 5 movements is because throughout the entire Pilates class, you're going to try to maintain all 5 Pilates rest positions. As we're moving our limbs through space, we're going to maintain this trunk control. So we're going to go over it. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see me. We're keeping our hands on our hips, and I want you to imagine your hips like a bucket of water. So imagine your hips are like a bucket of water, and we're going to rock the pelvis forward such that you're tipping water over the front of the bucket, and then we're going to roll it backwards to tip water out of the back of the bucket. So we're rocking. Can you see I'm tipping my pelvis forward and back? Imagining my pelvis is like the rim of a bucket, and I want to tip the water forward out of the bucket and then backwards out of the bucket. So I'm tipping the water in each direction. Keep going. I'm just letting somebody in from the waiting room. So when we're doing this, we're really thinking about that analogy of our hips being like the rim of the bucket, and we're working on isolating that hip movement to tip the water out of the front of the bucket and then out of the back of the bucket. And see how far you can go in each direction. As far as you can, tipping the water out of the front of the bucket, and then as far as you can, tipping the water out the back of the bucket. As far as you can in each direction. And then with each tipping movement, you're going to make the movement smaller and smaller and smaller until you come to a neutral pelvis, where the water is sitting perfectly still in the middle of the bucket, not tipping forward, not tipping backwards. And that's what we call our neutral pelvis. And that is position 1 of our Pilates rest position. So at all times in our class, we're maintaining our neutral pelvis. We're not tipping the water at any point. We're maintaining our neutral pelvis. The second Pilates rest position is going to be our ribs. While maintaining your neutral pelvis, we just found a moment ago, I want you to imagine there's a little belt at the front of your ribs that you're buckling in together. So your ribs are coming in together. They're not flaring. We're tucking the ribs in by clipping the seatbelt across the front of our ribs. And while we're tucking the ribs in, we're still maintaining our neutral pelvis. We're not going to now tip the water in any direction just because we put the ribs in. Okay, so those are 2 of our Pilates rest positions. The first one being our neutral pelvis that we're maintaining at all times. The second being the ribs tucked in at all times. The third Pilates rest position is going to be our shoulder blades. We're thinking about squeezing our shoulder blades together and then sliding them down our backs as if we're tucking the shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of our hands. And as we're doing that, we're maintaining the ribs tucked in. We're maintaining our neutral pelvis. And then the fourth Pilates rest position, we're going to lengthen the back of the neck like someone's pulled us up by a string. And we're imagining a little peach is tucked underneath our chin. And as we lengthen the back of our neck with a little peach under our chin, we're maintaining the shoulder blades sliding down as if we're tucking them into our back pocket. We're maintaining our ribs tucked in with a seatbelt. We're maintaining our neutral pelvis of that rim of water as our pelvis. We're not tipping the water forward or back out of the bucket. It's perfectly still. And then we're going to pull up through our pelvic floor as well, as if we just stepped into some cold water and we're pulling up through the bottom of our pelvis. These 5 positions make up our 5 Pilates rest elements. And as you can see, it's actually not restful at all. It's quite difficult to maintain all 5 together. So our neutral pelvis, imagining your pelvis is like a bucket of water. We're not tipping the water towards the back. We're keeping the water perfectly still in the middle. Our ribs, we're imagining a little seatbelt across the front that we're buckling in. We're tucking our ribs in towards our spine while maintaining our neutral pelvis, while our shoulder blades are squeezing together, sliding down our backs as if we're tucking the shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of our pants without the ribs flaring, without losing our neutral pelvis. And then we're going to lengthen through the back of our neck. Imagine a little peach that you're holding under your chin. And while we do that, we're not losing our ribs, we're not losing our shoulder blades, not losing our neutral pelvis. And we're also going to pull up through our pelvic floor. Maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions here, we're going into our dumb waiter, into our Cleopatra. And as we're moving our arms in this dumb waiter to Cleopatra pattern, we're maintaining all 5 Pilates rest elements. Our bucket of water, that is our pelvis, is not moving. It's completely still. We're still pulling up through our pelvic floor. Our ribs are still tucked into our spine, not flaring. Our shoulder blades are still sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Our necks are still nice and long with the imaginary peach tucked under our chin. So the entire time we're moving through our different Pilates sequences, we're maintaining all 5 of those Pilates rest positions. Breathing. Nicely done. Keep going. Nice and steady, maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. Don't let the ribs flare. Keep them tucked in. Don't let that bucket of water move. Keep that pelvis nice and steady. Shoulder blades are still sliding down into our opposite back pocket of our pants. Nicely done. And as we do this movement, we're going to try to add our leg. We're going to see if we can float one leg up and then lower it down. And the entire time we're doing this, we're maintaining our 5 Pilates rest positions. Just because we're now adding on our leg does not mean our bucket of water, that is our pelvis, is moving. Does not mean that our ribs are now flaring. I'm still tucking my ribs into my chest, into my spine, and I'm still sliding my shoulder blades down my back as if I'm tucking them into the opposite back pocket of my pants. Long backs of the neck as if I got a little peach tucked under my chin, still pulling up through the pelvic floor. You can probably sense that it's getting harder because we're now moving 3 limbs at the same time as we're trying to maintain our 5 Pilates rest positions, which is ironic because they're not very restful at all. Keep breathing, don't hold your breath. Remember with Pilates, we're really working on our postural control, being able to control our posture and our trunk despite moving our limbs in different directions. Really building that core strength, building that trunk stability. Nicely done, everybody. Maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions, long backs of the neck, ribs still tucked in, shoulder blades still sliding down as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Our pelvis, which is like that bucket of water analogy, still going to be kept neutral. So we're not rocking that bucket. We're not moving that water in any way. And we're still pulling up through our pelvic floor. Nicely done. Let's do 4 more. Keep your ribs tucked in. Shoulder blades sliding down into our opposite back pocket of our pants. Long backs of the neck. Pulling up through the pelvic floor. Last one. And keeping your 5 Pilates rest position, we're going to lower our arms. And just check in with yourself for a second. Is our pelvis still neutral? So we're thinking about that analogy of our pelvis being like a bucket of water. There's water filled to the brim. We don't want water tipping out the front or the back of the bucket or sideways. You want it to be perfectly still in the middle. Our ribs, imagine there's a seatbelt at the front. I'm clipping the seatbelt in to tuck my ribs into my spine. I'm pulling the shoulder blades together and down as if I'm sliding them into the opposite back pocket of my pants, long back of the neck with a little peach tucked under the chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. And we're going into our toy soldier. As we do our toy soldier, we're maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. We are keeping that bucket of water, that is our pelvis, entirely still, not moving a single drop. Our ribs are still tucked in towards our spine, shoulder blades still sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into our opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck with a little peach tucked under the chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. And we're going to try to add in our foot. Opposite foot to arm that's moving, or opposite foot to the arm that's lifting up, rather. We're lifting the heel, as you can see. And as we're doing this movement, just like before, we're maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. The bucket of water, that is our pelvis, is not moving. Not a single drop is moving. Ribs still tucked into our spine, shoulder blades still sliding down our backs. Long backs of the neck with a little peach under the chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. Nicely done. For a bit of an added challenge, if you wanted to, see if you can now flick the foot off the floor. Keep going. I'm going to turn sideways to show you. This is optional. You don't have to flick the foot off the floor, but if you wanted an extra challenge, you can try flicking the foot off the floor while maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. You're imagining your pelvis being that bucket of water, and we're keeping that water from spilling. The water is sitting perfectly still in the bucket. Our ribs are still tucked in towards our spine. Shoulder blades still squeezing together and sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long backs of the neck, no protruding neck like this. Long backs of the neck with a little peach tucked under the chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. As we're moving our arms and flicking our foot, we're maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. Don't hold your breath, breathing. So then keep going, turning around to face you again. We're going to keep the arms going and keep the feet still for a moment. We're planting the feet back into the earth, but our arms are still moving in our toy soldier. And then we're going to bring our arms in front of us like so, maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. We're now going to pulse our arms for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, palms up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, palms down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, palms up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Elbows up nice and high. We're tapping our shoulders, keeping the elbows completely stationary. And as we're doing all of this movement, our 5 Pilates rest positions are still kept intact. Our pelvis, that's the bucket of water, not moving. Ribs still pulled in together, tucked towards our spine. Shoulder blades still sliding down into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long back of the neck with a peach under our chin, pulling up through our pelvic floor, maintaining that, keeping your elbows high, pulsing for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Palms down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Palms up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Palm down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And drop the arms. Shake them out. Well done. You can slouch a little bit if you like, just to rest that torso. So as you can feel, the 5 Pilates rest positions really hard to maintain when you're adding in things like pulses and getting your limbs to move in different directions. And so that's the challenge behind our Pilates class. We're trying to maintain our trunk stability, our trunk control, despite all of our limbs moving. Okay, we're going to now re-engage our trunk and go back towards our 5 Pilates rest positions. So we're going to start again from the beginning to find our 5 Pilates rest position. We're going to imagine our pelvis is like a bucket of water that's filled all the way up to the rim. And I'm going to tip the bucket forward such that the water falls out the front of the bucket, and then tip the bucket backwards such that water falls out the back of the bucket. So I'm essentially tipping my pelvis forward and backwards as if I'm trying to get water out of the front of the bucket and then the back of the bucket. And I'm going to see how far I can go in each direction, tipping as far as you can in one direction and then as far as you can in the opposite direction. And then with each rocking motion, we're going to make the movement smaller and smaller and smaller until we come to stillness in a neutral position where the water in the bucket is sitting perfectly still, not tipping forward, not tipping backwards, perfectly still in the middle, smack in the middle of the bucket. And that's our Pilates rest position number 1. Number 2, we're going to imagine there's a seatbelt at the front of our ribs, and we're going to clip the seatbelt as we're tucking the ribs in towards our spine. And then our third position is our shoulder blades. We're imagining we're squeezing the shoulder blades together, sliding them down our backs, almost like we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long backs of the neck with a little peach tucked under the chin. From the side, I'm not like this. Long backs of the neck with a little peach tucked under my chin. And then I'm pulling up through the bottom of my pelvic floor, almost like I sat in some cold water and I went like that. So all 5 of those positions make up our 5 Pilates rest positions. And we want to maintain all 5 of those as we move through our class. So we're going to drop the arms down now, maintain all 5 of those Pilates rest positions. We're going to float the arms up into a T. And from here, we're going to try some rib movement. So while we're maintaining our 5 Pilates rest positions, including tucking the ribs to the spine, we're going to try and see if we can move our ribs side to side. The movement might feel really subtle. And remember, we're still maintaining our neutral pelvis to the best of our abilities. We don't want that bucket of water to tip just because we're moving our ribs. And we want to also still keep our ribs tucked into our spine. We're not flaring the ribs out. We're still keeping the ribs tucked in, even though we're isolating this rib movement. And our shoulder blades are still sliding down our backs as if we're tucking them into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long backs of the neck, chin tucked in, and we're pulling up through the pelvic floor. So this movement is quite subtle. This is not the same as this, right? That is a very different movement where it's almost like we cut ourselves in half and we're sliding the top half of our body from the ribs up, side to side. So we're maintaining our neutral pelvis. So our pelvis, like the bucket of water, not moving. Not a single drop is moving. And then we're going to see if we can try a circle. See if we can get our ribs to move in a circle. And as we do this, our neutral pelvis is maintained. Our bucket of water, that is our pelvis, not moving at all. We're still pulling up through the pelvic floor. Our ribs, even though it's moving, still buckled into our seatbelt, tucked into our spine, Shoulder blades still sliding down into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long backs of the neck, little peach under the chin. This is actually quite difficult, isn't it? Trying to move the ribs while maintaining all 5 Pilates press positions. And see if we can go the other direction with our something else. Long necks with a little peach tucked under our chin. Ribs still tucked in towards the spine, no flaring ribs. And let's drop the arms and rest, shake them out a little bit. Okay, moving back into our 5 rest positions. Think about the bucket of water completely still, ribs still buckled into our spine, no flaring, buckled into our spine, shoulder blades still squeezing together, sliding down into our opposite back pocket of the pants. Long backs of the neck, little peach under the chin. We're going to bring our legs a little wider, squeezing through the bottom of the pelvic floor. We're going to float the arms up, back up to a T shape. This time, maintaining all 5 Pilates rest position, we're going to tendu our leg out to the side, almost like, or on a diagonal, almost like someone's pulling your big toe and lengthening it away from you and back in. So we're sliding that foot away like someone pulling our big toes away from us. If it's hard to balance, bring your legs in a little bit, but turn your toes towards the diagonal, so you're sliding out into the diagonal. You're thinking about brushing down into the floor to lengthen away. Think down to lengthen away, down into the floor to lengthen away. Try your best to maintain all 5 Pilates rest positions. Keep that pelvis completely still. The bucket of water, that is your pelvis, completely still. Ribs still not flaring and tucking in towards your spine. Shoulder blades squeezing together, sliding down your backs as if you're putting them into the opposite back pocket of your pants. Long backs of the neck, little peach tucked under the chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. Nicely done. Drop the arms, maintain the legs. Nice and still with your position. Maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions without anything moving. Float the arms back up. We're going to see if we can flip that leg off the floor and put it down. Flip that leg off the floor and put it down. So we're pushing down. We're brushing our leg away. We're brushing down and away. Maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions as you're doing this. Maintaining that bucket of water that is our pelvis completely stationary. Not a single drop of water is moving. Ribs still tucked in together towards the spine. Shoulder blades sliding down into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Long backs of the neck, little peach under the chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. Drop the arms and see if this time we can pulse for 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. You can hold onto the chair if you need. 3, 2, 1. Keep that pelvis, that's the water, completely still. Ribs still pulled in together, tucked into our spine, shoulder blades sliding down our back still into the opposite back pocket of our pants. And rest. Bring your legs back in together. Shake the arms out. You can feel free to slouch a little bit in your chair if you like, just to relax the trunk a little bit. Okay. We're now going into our mermaid stretch. So this time, you're going to ignore your 5 Pilates rest positions, which you'll be happy to know. But we're going to imagine our spine lengthening towards the sky. So it's almost like your spine is like a tree. You're growing roots down into the earth, and you're lengthening all the way up through the crowns of your head towards the ceiling, as tall as you can, almost like you're pulling up so far that you're almost going to be lifted off your seat. That's how far the crown of your head should be reaching to the ceiling, Hold that position. I'm just letting somebody into the waiting room. Hold that position. Lengthen the crown of the neck towards the ceiling even more. And we're gonna now go up and over, curving to the side. Keep that crown of the head lengthening like someone's pulling you at the top of the head and back to the middle. We're still nice and tall, growing towards the ceiling to the other side. Up and over, like someone pulling you up and then pulling you over on a diagonal. And back to the middle. Again, up and over. Back to the middle. Up and over. Really imagine it's almost like you're de-weighting your pelvis off of the seat because you're being pulled so high up. Adding in the arms, up and over. Up and over, like someone pulling you up. Imagine lots of space between each of your vertebrae and your spine. Up and over. Your spine is so long that you're about to be pulled off your seat. Up and over. Nicely done. Two more. Up and over. Lengthening through the spine. Up and over. Lengthen through the spine. And drop the arms. Place your hands back onto your pelvis. Imagine that bucket of water, that's your pelvis. We're going to maintain that neutral pelvis. Ribs still tucked in towards our spine, no flaring out. Shoulder blades squeezing back and sliding down into the opposite back pocket of your pants. Long back of the neck with a little reach under the chin, pulling up through the pelvic floor. We're going to float the arms up behind our ears, maintaining all 5 Pilates rest positions. Shrug the shoulders up, drop them down, still getting the shoulder blades to slide into the opposite back pocket of the pants. Reach the arms up overhead, shrug and drop, and then lower the arms all the way down. The entire time we're doing this corkscrew pattern, we're going to maintain our neutral pelvis. Imagine that bucket of water being your pelvis, and it's completely still. Not a single drop of water is moving. Ribs still towards our spine. Shoulder blades still going to slide down into the opposite back pocket of our pants every time we finish that shrug. Long backs of the neck. Pulling up through the pelvic floor. Ribs tucked in, don't let the ribs flare out, especially when you reach your arms up overhead. Nicely done. One more. Ribs tucked in, don't let the ribs flare. Shoulders up. Reach the arms up. Shoulders up and down. And drop the arms, shake out the hands, roll the shoulders a few times, slouch, and sit back up a couple of times. Nicely done. I'm going to turn sideways. We're going to finish with some stretches. We're sitting forward in our seat. I'm going to slide one leg forward like so it's completely straight. Long spine, and I'm going to hinge forward at the hips, keeping my spine nice and long, and try to walk my hands down my leg. So we're trying not to curve the spine. We're keeping our spine as long as possible, hinging at the hips, and you should feel a stretch on the back of the thigh. Breathing as we're holding the stretch. And coming back up. Same to the other side. Lengthen that leg nice and tall through the spine, hinging at the hips, reaching the hands down that leg, nice and long through the spine. And coming back up. We're going to do a thigh stretch. This one's a little awkward to do in the seat, but I'll show you. We're going to turn into a diagonal, so our knees are kind of facing the diagonal. That front leg is going to slide back as far as you possibly can, such that that knee is pointing down towards the floor. And then you're going to lean it back into the chair, to try to really straighten that leg. So the further back your leg is and the more your knee is pointing at the floor, the more you'll feel that stretch in the front of the hips and the thigh. Really try to push that hip forward, like you're pointing that front knee towards the floor. Good. Coming back up, same to the other side. Over on the diagonal, slide that leg back such that the knee is pointing down at the floor as much as possible. Lean back into the seat. You should feel a stretch of the front of the thigh and the hip. Nicely done. And coming back up. We're going to take our arms, grab our elbow and pull it towards the opposite shoulder. Try to get that shoulder down as much as you can towards the floor, and you should feel a stretch in the outside of the arm. Breathing as you're doing this. And let's do the same on the other side. Grab the elbow and pull it to the opposite shoulder. Think about dropping that shoulder down to the floor. You should feel a stretch going across the outside of the arm. Nicely done. And drop the arms. We're going to place our hands onto our hips. And we're not going to do our 5 Pilates rest position. You can ignore that now. But we're going back to the grounding exercise we did at the beginning. So I want you to imagine your seat is like sand or wet cement. And you're sinking your pelvis as deep as you can into the seat. Really think about heavy, heavy, heavy pelvis. And you're going to weight shift. Rock the bottom of your pelvis forward and back. And you're really thinking about pressing an imprint into the seat. I'm going to do it from the side. This is not the same as our 5 Pilates rest positions because can you see I'm rocking? My torso is moving with my pelvis and I'm weight shifting all the way forward at the front of my pelvis and then all the way to the back of my pelvis. This is very different to the neutral pelvis we did with the bucket of water, which looks like this. My torso not really going with my pelvis, whereas now the whole body is rocking. I'm weight shifting to the front and weight shifting to the back. I'm imagining the wet cement of my seat and I'm really pressing the bottom of my pelvis down into that seat. And then we're going to do the same thing side to side. We're weight shifting side to side, like you're imprinting the bottom of your pelvis into the wet sand or the wet cement. That is your seat. And then we're going to try doing a circle. Really think about your pelvis being as heavy as possible, pressing deep into your seat. The weight shifting in the circular pattern deep into the seat. And the other direction, pressing deep into the seat. And then find some stillness in the middle, placing our hands at the bottom of our ribs. Close your eyes if you like, or you can keep them open. We're going to breathe into our hands and breathe out. Let the bottom of the ribs collapse. And again, breathing into the bottom of your ribs, pushing the hands away and collapsing the bottom of the ribs again. 2 more. Breathing, pushing the hands away. And breathing out, shrinking the ribs, collapsing the ribs. 1 more. Breathing in, pushing the hands away. And breathing out, pulling the ribs in towards you. Drop the arms and open your eyes. Thank you everyone for joining me for your seated power Pilates class, week number 2. Well done, you've done, you've done the class. And I hope you can notice some changes in your body after doing some grounding exercises and really connecting with how we're moving our trunk and our torso and our body through space. And you'll probably feel the main challenge of the class is to really maintain all 5 of our Pilates rest positions. It's very difficult to do. We're moving our arms and legs and layering on all of these new movements. I hope you enjoyed the class, and I will see you here, same place, same time next week. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.